Hello world! Today we continue with part 2 of Election Pains, as our host Lamar Bearden continues his conversation with Jose Stelle. Now let's join our host.
And some pay less. I get less because I haven't been here long enough. And I went back to Brazil, and so I didn't put in enough money. Anyway, but the average American worker gets $1,932, if I'm not mistaken, per month. You cannot live on that. What do the politicians do? Oh, we're going to give you free food, and we're going to create a source, we're going to add, $300 in food stamps or whatever for as part of your health insurance plan, so you can have, and they still, after robbing you for 50 years, they still want to pretend that they're actually saving me. Do the Republicans say anything against this? No. Are they even aware that this stuff is going on? I don't know. Why don't they do the right thing and go on a campaign for the next 10 years if necessary, but get this idea into the minds of the workers, into the minds of the people, this idea that if you privatize, if this money is under your control at Wells Fargo Bank or something, right? Or, or Bank of America or whatever, and it is, of course, watched, nobody can, pilfer this, you will have not $1,900 or $2,000 in your miserable thing that you get right now. You're going to be getting $15,000 a year. Wouldn't you vote for the GOP? Yeah, they will, right? But they don't do it. They're afraid that if they say that, they're going to lose the next election, of course, which is what happened when Bush 1 was in power, right?
Well, they're really afraid they're going to lose that money.
Yeah, he tried. Bush went on a little trip around America announcing this kind of thing, but he did it very poorly. The Democrats immediately jumped on him and said, he's going to destroy Social Security. You're going to be in poverty when you are 67 years old. Total lie. You're not going to be in poverty. You're going to be making $12,000 to $15,000 a year if you do that, right? He went back to Washington, and the GOP, for fear of losing the next election, simply didn't do anything. They know that this must be done. Why don't they do the moral thing? Why don't they lose the election but show what has to be done? And then regroup and go all over America, go to all the labor unions, go to all the factories and say, this is what needs to be done. You will not be getting $2,000 or $1,900 in 57 years. You're going to be the equivalent of $15,000. Wouldn't you like that? I'm sure that the great majority of people in America would support that. So don't think that Trump or the Republicans are going to save this country.
No.
They're not. They're equally corrupt, and they are, in a sense, by their silence and their cowardice, they are helping the Democrats take America in the direction of socialism. There is no way to stop it right now unless
I have to say you're right.
I have a couple of practical things here that I want to discuss before we come to an end. I hope I haven't taken too much of your time. How to pay that, right now they're saying, well, the federal government, never mind the states and the counties and the cities of America, all of which are in debt up to here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but let's give the example. How can you, they're basically saying, well, we have to default. We cannot pay $37 trillion or 34 right now. Yes, you can. Privatize everything that the government owns. It's not the function of government. The function of government is licit coercion, legal coercion, suppression of crime, basically, maintaining order. That's the function of government, right? Plus justice, right? You need justice, a better system of justice than one we have, right? And I think every worker, as part of his, deductions every month, if you lower all the other expenses, there will be enough for him to have, let's say, instead of a health plan, a legal plan. Anytime he has a problem with the law or if something's happening, in order to, It's something like the same thing that you have in your health system. You go to the doctor and you pay $40, and the rest is somehow paid off by the system, right? Okay. Yeah, we could actually have a situation in which every American has not only a health plan, but also let's say a legal plan or a law health plan or whatever you call it, right? Legal representation plan. Okay. What does the government own? The highway system. Sell it. Some countries have, even Brazil, which is a socialistic country, some of the highways in Brazil are privatized, right? As soon as they're privatized, the owners begin to improve them and put guardrails, which don't exist, and repairing the bridges and paving it with new asphalt, and okay, right? Don't need to have a highway system under the control of the U.S. government. Sell it totally, or as they will sell it in pieces. Regulate it in such a way so that there will be no exploitation of the monopolistic system of transportation at that point. Let's say, create a situation where, whoever owns I-75, let's say gets 3 or 4% profit a year, and that's it, no more, right? And then lower all the taxes on, how is that paid for? Taxes on gasoline. Well, eliminate the taxes on gasoline, right? So sell all the government-owned local, state, federal, county, whatever. Privatize them all under law, under appropriate regulation, so there will be no exploitation. Eliminate all the taxes that are at the moment are funding that, right? Number 2, sell Tennessee Valley Authority. Sell Hoover Dam. Sell Grand Coulee Dam. Sell the VA. Why do we need the VA? We don't need a VA for just give the wounded soldier, some kind of a health plan, and you can go to St. Mary's Hospital in West Palm Beach to get cured, right? Don't need to go to the VA. Those are all, systems of,
Well, I'm gonna, no disrespect, but I'm gonna have to disagree with that.
Yeah?
I don't see letting other countries buy us like China's buying our farmland. I don't.
Well, that should be illegal too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think America's for sale. I think America belongs to American people.
Okay.
And I don't think no other country should buy up.
Wait. When I say privatize the highway system, it's not for China to come in and buy it. It's for Americans to buy it, right?
No. Right. But see, it ain't. All this wouldn't be a problem. I mean, we wouldn't have to worry about taxes. We wouldn't have to worry about short of money if our own government would quit wasting our money.
And surprise, as long as it's democratic and it needs to win votes, it will be corrupt and it will do all these things to support itself.
I agree. But when we start sending off parts of our highways and stuff like that, Hoover Dam, and they want to raise the price to the public and for the lights, for the water, we got to take care of our veterans. I don't want to sell off nothing that has to do to take care of our veterans.
Wait a second. They don't take care of the veterans. What takes care of the veteran is the funding for the medical services.
Yeah.
The hospital itself can be St. Mary's Hospital with a wing for the treatment of wounded veterans. As long as your health card will pay for that, right? Mm-hmm. We can create the regulations and the law that will fund that. But the thing is what the bureaucrats and the social democrats, they want control. They don't want to help the people. They want to control the people.
I understand.
And the only way for the people to control themselves is if they actually are the owners of the thing. There's no such thing that can never be public ownership. let's say, if you own, for example, shares in Ford Motor Company, you at least can compete against the system by selling that thing and getting rid of it, right? Do you have shares in Hoover Dam? No, you don't. You have nothing. It's controlled by somebody, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So, let's spread the wealth. Let's people, it doesn't have to be a corporation. It could be,
what I'm getting what you're saying.
No, okay. I want you to understand one thing, and then we can go back. Can go to the privatization of education, which is the idea of John Stuart Mill of separating, and this can be applied exactly to the VA and the Hoover Dam situation. Is that you have separate funding from administration. Right now, if those two things are combined, and they're in the hands of government, I mean, does Congress even worry about these things? These things are all done by people who are not even elected in the bureaucracies. They're lawyers, and they interpret everything they do. A good thing that the Supreme Court recently said, okay, people are getting out of hand. Legislation, should not be done by the secretary, by what we call ministries, the minister of this or the ministry of that. What do you call these things? Like, let's say the Secretary of Agriculture should not be making laws concerning agriculture. This belongs to Congress. I think this is what the Supreme Court said recently, kind of reined their power in to create regulation, right? And I think I mentioned here before that this was way back in 1978. Way back in 78. Never mind just the regulations, the industrialization of legislation that you have in Congress, in the states, every time you write a law, I guess I said this, every time you write a law or some kind of something in Congress, it has to be implemented, right? So people say, well, the state is getting too big. It's taking up more and more and more of people's resources. Well,
I agree with you. Government has too much power.
Yeah, but it gets it through the democratic system, through elections, and then you put these people in Congress, and in order to promote themselves and think they're doing the good or just to win the next election, they write all kinds of stuff on them. They're making legislation all the time. It's like a machine that is producing bureaucracy and more taxes to fund the bureaucracy because, of course, the bureaucracies are the ones who actually run the country. Congress doesn't run the country, right? Bureaucracies do, right? Once the so-called law is approved, then, of course, it goes over to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of this, the Secretary of that, and they have to somehow transform that into some kind of regulation, right? In 1978, I've said this here before, in 1978, the number of regulations written by the ministries of the United States, right, only at the federal level, 80,000 pages of small print every year. In 78, today, I'm sure it's 200,000, right? Nobody knows what's on page 80,737. I'm sure that over there, down, if you go, it says that there's a paragraph there that was written in there, was put in there, that was bought by some private interest to create a situation that will give them some kind of power.
I got you. I know what you're talking about.
I mean, James Buchanan got the Nobel Prize in economics for talking about this. So I'm not inventing this, right? This is what happens. Yeah, And not only, also in Congress, of course, what happens? I vote for your, on December 23rd, on Friday at 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody's watching, people are waiting for Santa Claus to come, right? What do? Omnibus bills. Every piece of legislative filth that you can imagine that will get that congressman or that senator reelected is put in that bill. What are they doing? They're taking money from you to get reelected. I vote for your bridge to nowhere in Alaska. Remember the senator in Alaska that got money for the bridge to nowhere? And then Robert Byrd of West Virginia, 56 years in the Senate. Are you kidding me? 6 years is enough, okay? And then out you go, and never can you, according to Aristotle, short terms, and after that, no more.
I hear people
Public
say,
service is not a profession. It's not self-service. Okay. And so Robert Byrd, of course, makes a trade with all these other people. They say, okay, you give me money to build a library with my grandfather's name in West Virginia, and I'll vulture your bridge to nowhere over in Alaska. This is what they do. This is crime. We're talking about crime.
and that's why I say
This is organized crime.
I know, but it's impossible to get those people together and do the thing that's right.
Well, as I said, if they are elected by democratic parties, you can never get that. How did Aristotle and Plato, well, especially Aristotle, who was more of a technician, how did he say? Well, number one, you have to have a good resume. Number two, we need to know that you're really an honest and worthy individual. We trust you, right? Number three, you're going to be in power, let's say, for 5 years, and then you will never be in power again. You cannot ever come back and be an elected person. Number three, and this was copied by Augustus the Emperor in his system, nobody's going to vote for you. Once you have your resumes, collected, you put their names in a bag, write your name on there, and then somebody goes in there and goes like this and pull out the name and says, Joe Stelle is going to be, right, let's say, Minister of Education for the next 5 years. And after that, Joe Stelle disappears. After 5 years, he disappears. He can never be in any kind of thing again. So this is the kind of system that would actually take care of this problem that you're talking about. As long as you have elections and re-elections and parties, you can never get this thing.
Do away with the career politicians. That's what you're saying.
Well, let's talk, the Republicans have been talking about, it's not the solution. Not the solution. It's slightly better. Let's say term limits. Well, of course, let's say that it's term limits, right? But the term limits cannot be, let's say that you have a term limit in the local legislature, and then you're going to run for, let's say, the state legislature, and then after term limits there, you run for senator, and then you run for president, or you run for governor. No. Once you serve, like the soldier, you serve. The soldier doesn't come back and serve again, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Public service is public service. A serious business is not self-service, okay? All right. Well, anyway, we sold the VA hospitals and sell the national parks to the environmentalists. Let them raise money and buy it and run it according to, the best ways that you can actually promote the health of those trees and everything that's happening there and the viability of those animals. Okay, privatize education. This was proposed way back in 1859 in the applications section of John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. Here he says, the problem that we have with education is that funding and administration are connected together in the hands of the government. He says, the result is the attempt to control, especially control the minds of the children, the people educated, and also poor quality, right? It's not competitive, right? It's just a system that goes on and on and on, year after year. Okay, what makes better airplanes and better automobiles? Competition. Fear that the Japanese are going to make one better than Detroit, right? So we in Detroit are going to get together and come up with this is what produces civilization and quality and progress, right? Competition. All right, there's no competition in the public school system. So, yeah, the children, the poor have to be educated. They have to have, education. So, yes, on a sliding scale, right? If they cannot, everybody has to pay a little bit. If the family is poor and cannot pay, $20,000 in tuition at a private school, okay, we're going to take the same amount of money right now that's being spent on public schools, and we're going to give you, the poor family, a voucher. for you to choose the best private school that you can. You know, this year maybe you think that this is a good one. You put the child in there, not working. Next year you put it in some other place. Some people will want their children to be educated in the liberal arts and languages and Latin and Greek and all these things because they have some kind of a philosophical writer's mind or something. Okay, so this school here, in addition to, to the basics, math, the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, right? Everybody has to have that. But after that, okay, some will function, some will maybe promote music, others will promote painting and drawing, others will promote whatever, right? Technical education or something, computers or programming. Yeah, then you have a competitive system. And we will probably, the United States is probably one of the least educated countries in the world, and it's the one that spends the most on education. It's a total waste. Not only that, but according to researchers done recently, 75% of so-called education funding in America goes to administrators, the assistant principal and the assistant principal and the all of these sorts of people that are in there, and the secretary and whatever, right? Only 15% is spent on actually teaching and paying salaries to teachers, right? Right. The years ago, about 20 years ago, I guess, or 15 years ago, the administrator of the public school system in Palm Beach County said that 75% of our teachers are incompetent, right? They're bad teachers. They don't know what they're doing, right? Why is this happening? Because you have a public school system, right? It's poorly paid. Who's gonna go there? Just desperate people who don't know anything. So we need to raise the salaries of teachers. We have to. You can only do that. Can do that only if you have a competitive system. So no more public schools. No Georgia State University. No, no Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Yeah, you're saying privatize, do away with education.
Yeah. Well, no, you still have education.
Well, I mean, do away with.
But the funding is one thing, the administration is another, right? So you give the citizen the right. It's his money anyway, right? It's not the government's money. So give the citizen the tax money that's been collected and say, okay, on a sliding scale, the billionaires, the son of Trump doesn't have to get a voucher for $30,000 to go to ABC school, right? Middle school or whatever. No. All right. So, okay, they get maybe $1. But let's say the poor person right now, gets full tuition or maybe almost full tuition. And maybe even if they have to pay $50 a year, everybody should always have the idea that he's paying a little bit. Right. A little bit. Okay. Over time, I'm sure that you're going to have one of the most competitive, one of the best system of education in America. Forget Georgia State University. No more. No University of Colorado. No more. Sell it to the teachers, the professor. They could, the Marxists talk about ownership of the means of production. Well, sell it to the teachers, right?
Yeah, but if you sell it to the teachers, you sell it to these people, they can turn just as corrupt and even more corrupt.
That is
than...
Okay, we go back to appropriate regulation here, right? There are things you cannot do, right? Let's say maybe you have, we talk so much about, what's it called, diversity. Is there diversity in the, let's talk about the one I know about, the California State University system. 92% of the professors there are Democrats. Only 8% are Republicans. Okay. You want diversity? How about making that 50-50 or something like that, right? Right? You see what I mean?
Yeah. What about this making a school of education? Like, you're talking about giving the money back to the people to spend for their child's education. Yeah. How about when they have that, just basically like a doctor. See, you got doctors and they create schools, what you're talking about, and then they create schools in a private sector where, like doctors, we got specialists that specialize in cancer or any kind of disease or broken bones or all this different thing. Like my shoulder, I got a doctor that specializes in my shoulder.
Right.
And I say, hey, I'm having all this stomach trouble. What do you think about it? And he says, I only specialize in shoulders.
Yeah.
So if we have these different private sectors that teach different private things.
Right.
Like, doctors.
Right,
Basically like doctors. And you put all these sectors together and different educations, especially like.
Well, what I understand. What's your fear? Your fear is that they're going to specialize too much, and the child is not going to get, the student's not going to get a broad education.
No, I'm talking about people, blue collar workers that going to be a doctor, want to be all that, and just like all right, like a law school, say law school, you got some kid wants to grow up and be a law student. He wants to go to law school. How are you going to keep? You're going to have to still have basically kind of like a college.
Well, the system remains pretty much as it is, right? And let's say, how do you bring discipline to any system? Well, the greatest disciplining factor in any situation like this is competition, the fear of losing business, right?
Well,
so Harvard or University of Colorado, the new University of Colorado, now privatized, maybe sold to the teachers, right? They got together there and went to some kind of a bank and got a big, $1 billion loan to buy that campus and buy those buildings. And now they're going to run it as their own business, right? If that's what they want.
Yeah, but if they run it in the wrong way.
Well, how are they going to do it the right way? Through competition, the fear of losing business and going under, right? So quality is not something that people do because they want to do it. They do it because they're afraid of losing the game, right? How do you improve competition in football or in basketball or anything? By training and it's the fear of losing games, right? And fear of the Dallas Cowboys going down the drain and going bankrupt. That is what keeps the Dallas Cowboys alive, sort of back and forth, winning here, losing there, right? Same thing with the education system, right? The fear of losing the students.
All right. Well, just suppose you do away with all that.
Let me just finish. So there are two ways to discipline. Number one, the main discipline comes from the fear of losing business, which is competition. Number two, appropriate and fairly severe regulation so that they can do certain things and certain things they cannot do, right? For example, no professor should be able to say in the classroom, which is happening right now all over America, that this happened to my daughter when she was in college, is that this professor was all in love with the new socialism of Venezuela, and instead of talking about political philosophy and the fundamentals of what Plato and Aristotle and David Hume said, the guy spent his time in class preaching socialism and making them believe the new socialism of Venezuela was the great way to go. This, of course, has to be forbidden by law, by the regulation under the new system. You cannot do that. You can only present things, both sides. Let's say both sides of the opinion say, this is what the Marxists say, this is what the critics of the Marxists say, in these areas and these areas. And that's it. And you, as the student, will either agree that Marxism is cool, or you think, no, this thing doesn't make sense. No, von Mises and von Bauwerk are the ones who really explain that it doesn't work or that it's a thing, you know.
I mean, this might not match up or sound weird. I'm just thinking, a group gets together, they buy a college, and their main topic is to teach students this one thing. What if their one thing is how to turn a boy into a girl? Yeah.
Forbidden by law, punishable as child abuse. You know, I think that something like that should maybe even be punished by death. You know, you cannot say that. You cannot take the defenseless mind and sensibility of a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 5, 15.
No, I'm talking about grown students that start going to college to learn a trade, maybe. And just they own their own business, and then you have to come, and it goes against everything that we stand for. Like right now, Kamala Harris goes against everything. Her and Biden stands for everything that's not right.
Yeah.
By homosexuality, giving prisoners sex change, taking kids and talking them. These teachers should be in jail for that.
Well, so should she maybe, right?
Yeah, and her too.
The thing is that, a lot of this goes back to education in the Platonic sense. Okay, what was Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, these people talking about? They were talking about the fact that every individual has, let's say, a spirit, right? It has an internal conscience that is actually the defining aspect of that person, right? And that should be protected. But in order to even achieve that, you have to have a system in which all sorts of ideologies and attempts to control mind, which, by the way, religion has always tried to do, right? Religion has never been used to further the development of the individuality and the full flowering of that person. It has always been an attempt to control the person, make sure that person keeps things in line, and comes to the temple and puts the coin in there to get the priests, read. I think what is the book of the Amos in the Bible? I think it's the last verse of the Bible. Basically, what's the priest? It's written by a priest, obviously. Saying basically, what's he saying there? You are bad people because you're not contributing you're not bringing the 10% to the temple or something like that.
That's not religion.
Huh?
That's not religion.
Well, it's what they wanted, right?
The old Bible.
Temples have always been a business, right? The temples, let's say the Canaanites even had the sacred prostitute, right? In order to make money and bring billionaires like Trump to the temple, they had a sacred prostitute, right? So you could actually, by mating with her and paying $1 million to mate with her, it's like remember, see the movie Pretty Baby? Did you remember that with Brooke Shields? Something like that. That by mating with that sacred prostitute, you could actually, in the throes of passion, get a spiritual connection with the goddess of love. Talk about propaganda, right? Talk about mind control, right? And then they did that. They did that for hundreds of years, and those temples produced miracles and all kinds of stuff. Miracles that were just, It
wasn't a miracle. It was the blindness of the people that seen a miracle that wasn't even there.
Right.
We got preachers right now that tell people right now, if you'll send me $1,000, that's not religion.
Oh, but it's always been that way.
Yeah, but
pretty much.
It's not.
Pretty much.
It's not. It's called religion.
Yeah.
But it's not right.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to the Bible, that don't compare with the Bible. You can have Church of God, you can have Baptists, you can have a Methodist, you can have every church in the world, you can have every church in the world you can take a scripture and come up with some religion that is a lie.
Yeah.
See, they're lies. They're lies. They're divided. The devil has brought people together, and people that are evil have come up with these ideas just to make money.
Make money, yeah. It's a business. Religion has always been a business, basically. Temples and churches, it's always been a business. Still is to this day. And there are different people. But here's something that Immanuel Kant talks about. He says that, there are two things. One is traditional morality. People want to be good. People want to do the right thing, right? And then you have religion, which hijacks. I mean, it's kind of like it uses the rail. It's like a train that uses the rail of traditional morality and runs over it in order to achieve its purposes by actually corrupting and subduing and stealing those fine elements that people have of their desire to every human being. Ayn Rand, who's an atheist, talks about this. I actually don't think she's an atheist by my definition, but anyway, she says she does. She was. Ayn Rand said that people want the good, the best, the ideal, right? And so every individual sort of recognizes that and wants to, unless they're really evil or have a bad education, they're criminals, they want to do the right thing, right? But then, the inventors of sects, every religion was a sect initially that grew and got more people to join it, right? But everything is some entrepreneur, right, comes over and says, okay, join my new way of interpreting the world here, and I will make you happy, whatever. And then of course there's a question of power, even political power, military power, which is Islam is all about, right? That's what it is. It's really not a religion. It's an army of invasion, basically. They take these immoral priests and these immoral entrepreneurs that want to make money, or heaven knows why they do these things. So they take the best feelings of people, the people's desire to be good, right? And they use that to subdue them and make them do things and make them feel guilty, and they're going to go to hell unless they come to church every Sunday and believe that particular thing, This happened, for example, in the temples of Serapis in the Middle East, especially in I think there was one over around Lebanon, but the main one I think was in Egypt in the old days, in Alexandria. They promoted miracles, right? So, mothers who have a sick child or something would come there, and then they would promise a miracle, right? So they used the technology of the time, for example, siphons or something under the temple, or they paid a sculptor to create a image of a god with a hole inside, that would come out to the eyes, and there were little holes in the eyes of the god here, and then they would. So it says, okay, go sick mother of the sick child, go and pray in front of the god over there, and he'll feel sorry for you, and he'll cure your child for a price, of course. First, you have to pay, right, to have the privilege.
But how much did Jesus ever get paid for?
Yeah, and so they would insert goat's blood or chicken blood through that system, and then a couple of drops of blood would come out of and the woman would say, "Oh my God, the God is feeling sorry for me. He's going to listen to my prayer, whatever. This is how they did things with people. Others would have a siphon with water, of course, under the temple. And let's say the God has an open mouth. Of course, there was a hole over here that goes all the way under the roof. What do you call this? What do you call this? Under the temple, right?
Yeah.
And go over there. And so you would go and talk to the God and say, oh, God, Osiris, whatever the God was there that they used, Apollo or something. I have a problem, please help me, whatever. And that voice would go under, and then some priest over there, some bureaucrat would say, Apollo has heard your voice, and he will take care of you. And that voice would come under the water, and the person would say, oh my God, Apollo talked to me. This is what they did for hundreds of years. They did this kind of stuff, promising miracles and stuff like that.
Well, way I see it, you read the Bible and you see what it says, you don't let nobody tell you how it is. God will open your eyes to what it means.
Yeah.
And it said for us not to be idol worshipers.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I know and I'm not ashamed to get out there and say, Jenny Weaver, you come here and you explain to me how you can take somebody and stick them under water and they'll be saved just because you took them under water. I want to know how did you perform all these miracles for everybody for money. I want to know why Jesus said he went in the temple and he took a leather strap and whooped them all out and said, this is a house of prayer. This ain't no auction here.
Yeah, it's not an auction hall. Yeah.
Yeah. I want, and I've heard these preachers, and then I'll have to have a jet. I don't want to get on them planes with those demons. Well, I want you to know Jesus walked through all the demons and he cast them all out and he sat down and eat with them, and he rode a donkey, and you ain't worthy to have a jet. You ain't worthy to have a mansion. You ain't worthy of a Rolls Royce. You ain't nothing but a piece of dirt in God's sight, a grain of sand.
Yeah.
You're nothing.
Yeah. And make you feel really bad and unworthy, right? So you become.
Yeah.
So
John the Baptist said, I'm not even worthy to loosen his shoes. And I got Copeland and all them standing up and say there's something special. Oh, it makes me sick to my stomach.
Oh, no.
It makes me sick to people to look at people and have their confidence in a man.
Yeah.
That's what makes me sick.
Okay, so where does education come in? Why are people so weak-minded that they don't even see through this thing? Because the education
That's what they're looking for. They want to see a God that don't exist.
Yeah. But this is a problem with education. Education should, if you are taught to think and to question things and logic and all of these sorts of things, and that's part of education system, in good morals or whatever, you will be able to see through this thing and say, I'm not going to do
God
this.
can educate you. You don't have to learn how to read.
Well, no, it's
not really.
But to pay attention to things, yes, to know what's true and not
what
true.
it said and what it means.
Yeah.
And I had a friend. He was named Shorty Stevens. He's a preacher, and he lived in a little old shack. He had he had a livable home, but it was a shack. The man always preached. He put up tents and stuff like that, and he preached, and he lived off what people give him with a little melon, and he did work. Putting up a tent's work, and but anyway, he couldn't read a word. But you asked him something about the Bible, and he knew about it.
Yeah. I have a few more things to talk about here. I mean, we can go on forever. Another thing that I think can be eliminated is labor unions. Labor unions are actually a privileged criminal organizations, basically. That's what they are. Okay.
But they've made them that.
Well, we've made them by law. This is, it all comes out of socialism, these sorts of ideas, the idea that they're being ripped off by the owner of the factory, and therefore they have to take over and be communists, whatever,
Yeah.
But it's obviously, who gets rich in the labor union? The guy who has to pay, compelled to pay. In other words, he has to pay a toll, so to speak, on the road of labor to those guys who control the factory. A factory that's not even theirs. It belongs to the investors, right?
I agree.
Owners. So labor unions, the way they are a threat against the principle of property. Once more, everything, all the evils of the world are violations of property base. And where's property in the end? Is in the individuals, right? In the control of his life, his labor, his happiness. So they interfere, basically. They stand between the guy who wants to work and the owners of the factory there, or the business, and say, unless you pay us some money, you cannot have the job. Right. It's the same thing as priests have said throughout, and unless you come here and put some money in the kitty, God will punish, or you cannot go to heaven, or so you cannot go to heaven, or something like that. Right? Same thing. So labor unions must be extinguished by law and transformed. Since some of the things that happen in labor unions, of course, are okay. Which is, some kind of concern about, their situation there. So labor unions should be extinguished by law and transformed into competitive organizations that train and, quote unquote, sell trained labor to whoever wants to buy them. Right. So they have to become private competitives. It's like, for example, Lockheed. Lockheed has, is competing with other companies to sell airplanes to the Air Force, right, or to the Navy or whatever, right? Same thing. So you train the people to become carpenters or lathe operators or whatever it is that's happening in the industry today. It could be, for example, office work, computer work, whatever. Go and train them, and then either as a co-op, they can become a co-op that sells their labors to whoever wants to buy them, or they can be just not a co-op, but simply somehow people who are invested in that kind of thing, that do the training and sell. Instead of selling airplanes to the Air Force, you sell trained workers, the best trained workers you can, to whoever wants to buy them, right?
They have people that do that right now. And I know the guy that worked with the telecom industry. If you wanted a job and you were a welder,
let's say, welder.
Yeah, well,
same sort of thing.
Verizon. Yeah. Verizon would hire this group.
Yeah.
I know this man. He would find them, like a guy that climbs the tower and hangs the and all that stuff.
Right.
A union is good if it's run right. It's like, now you take the Screen Actors Guild and AFTA. If they didn't tell you about things going on, a lot of times that people hire people to come in there and don't pay them, and so they send out a notice letting the Screen Actors Guild members know about this person, and say, I belong to the Screen Actors Guild. And when you are offered a movie or something, they offer you so much, and they let you know that they're legit.
Uh-huh.
And you pay dues to that union, and that union has Screen Actors Guilds have great benefits.
Okay, I'm saying that if the union is the problem is that the union cannot simply, what's a union? A group of thugs, basically. They come in and say, we're going to ruin your business. We're going to, and they do that.
No, that's not right.
No. This happens sometimes in Brazil, for example. Lula da Silva, the organizer there, they would simply shut down Ford Motor Company or whatever, or GM, by throwing dirt and sand and pieces of iron, into the lathes and things to stop the machines. And
that's not a union.
Oh, that's what a union is.
Well, it's really not a union. They're a bunch of crooks.
No, but okay. So I say, okay, let's take this whole thing.
Like the mafia. The mafia runs on.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that no person who wants to work, wants to produce, should have to pay toll to ride on that highway of labor. Should not have to do that. Okay? It should be free, and they can.
Well, if they have a union,
they can be like a co-op, for example. But the idea still is to train those people and then to quote unquote sell them to whoever wants to buy them. The same way that Lockheed, makes the best airplane, tries to sell it to the Air Force, right? Same thing.
Well, that's the way you can't get a job now hardly without filling the application out on the internet. It's all run by the internet.
Yeah. Well, all things have changed. Anyway, let me see here.
I think we're going to have to end this in about 2 or 3 minutes.
2 minutes? Here's something that Plato said about democracy in his Republic. He said, when you need a pair of shoes, you go to the best shoemaker. Right? When you need, let's say, a haircut, you go to the best haircutter, right?
Yeah.
He says, when you're sick, you go to the best doctor, not to the one who has the best ability to talk, which is what politicians excel in, right? You don't go to
preachers and politicians.
Yeah.
About the same.
He says, when you're sick, you go to the best doctor, not the one who has the greatest ability to speak. He says, therefore, right? But he says, here's the funny thing and the evil thing, is that when the state is sick, right, we think, this is the democratic theory, the democratic illusion. People think that they should actually go to the guy who makes the greatest speech and promises the greatest things, right? He says this is no way to run the republic, right? This is no way to run the country, right? In addition, of course, the government cannot just do what it wants to do. You still have to do it under law, right? So you have to have some kind of a system. It doesn't have to be a written constitution like the United States, even though it's been tried. It could be just a common law system, which is what Rome had and England has, right? But you have to do things, as Sir Thomas More said, at least in the movie, the people will act according to its wits, but Parliament has to act according to the law, right?
Yeah.
And does Parliament in America or in England run according to law? Not really. 95% of what they produce there is not law. It's just instructions about how to spend money and who's going to get what,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're going to have to cut it off. This will probably go out in maybe a couple hours. But I want everybody to know that I do believe there's some real good preachers out there that really preach the gospel. It's not after the money.
Yeah.
I just want to lay that on you, so don't be discouraged about what I said. You go to church and you go worship God, because try the spirits and see if they're of God. So we're going to thank Jose for being here, and he will be back. But anyway, we thank you for being here, Jose.
Okay.
And we look forward for you to be here again. And God bless all of you out there.
The views and opinions expressed on all Talkin' Live presentations are those of the host and their guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of the Talkin' Live TV broadcast studio, or by this channel or its management.
Hello world! Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications of our upcoming broadcasts. Explore our large archive of shows. Watch any episodes you need to see again. Find our YouTube channel online at youtube.com/@Talkin' Live Show, or on your Roku or Amazon Fire TV home screen. Head to the YouTube app to watch without the need of any expensive cable TV service. Subscribe today. Get ready for some Talkin' Live.
Talkin' Live Classics TV has a new look. Now each day of the week has something new in store for you. Tune in Mondays to watch Briefing Room Monday War Dramas. Tuesdays, you can still catch all the classic movies from years gone by. And brand new is our Western Wednesdays every week. Thursdays are classic Vault TV shows all day long. Grab a spot on the couch and have a sci-fi movie and a pizza each Friday. Super Saturday cartoons for your kids. You will be reliving the morning TV you grew up with all day long. Each Sunday is our Southern Gospel Day of Worship. All of the worship music you know. And we now have Billy Graham each week at 10 in the morning and 7 in the evening. Watch online at TalkinLiveClassicsTV.com or anytime on our Roku and Amazon Fire TV channels. You can still catch our Talkin' Live show with Lamar Bearden, new every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 in the evening.
Timeless Classics TV now has openings for advertising to promote your services to all our viewers. Openings include every genre from westerns and comedies to Billy Graham programming every Sunday. Our audience can be a great asset, as our programming can reach millions each day through online, fiber, and network TV broadcasting. Send us your finished advertising video, and we will run your ad free for 1 month. That's right, free for 1 month. Don't have a promo for your organization? We have state-of-the-art studio facilities, and we have the ability to create an AI-generated spokesperson or an in-studio advertisement for a small charge for production. Nothing to lose. See what we have to offer. Call today. 423-290-9194 and ask for Lamar, or email us at my2cents@talkinlive.com.